So, wall bases, crown molding, wainscoting, chair rails, panelized wall paneling. These these are kind of things that I can say I've gotten lots of questions over the years of how exactly do I approach modeling these? And I can guarantee you that out of the however many hundred people are here live tonight and thousands that see it in the future, you probably all have your own unique approach to doing this. So today, I'm going to welcome Brenton Wiberg back to the show, and he's going to show his new and exciting way to approach these interior millwork finishes. So let's roll the clip, and we'll jump right into this episode of BIM After Dark Live. All right, everyone. Welcome back. This is episode 123 of BIM After Dark Live. I want to welcome you here on this Thursday night. And I'm going to just jump right into it and introduce our guest because he's sitting in the wings. And welcome to the show, Brenton Wiberg. Hey, man. Welcome back.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for having me back.
Of course. Brenton has been on the show many times. I think the last time you were on, we were talking about maybe electrical plants, I think might have been the last time.
That sounds right.
Yeah. And so welcome back to the show. For those of you who have never been on the show before or seen this live stream, again, this is episode 123. So if you want to see the other 122 episodes, head on over to live.bimafterdark.com. Also, if you've been following along this season, you may have seen that I've been going along and showing my project called the North Wing, which is an addition that I'm design building in my own house. We're going to take a quick break from that to have Brenton on the show, but it is related because this is very much residential Revit content. But I thought this was a great opportunity for Brenton to show what he's doing, and I know I get this question all the time. And I also wanted to add that throughout this season, you probably noticed that the episodes have been sponsored by Brenton and Brenton's company, revitfamily.biz. And so before we move in, and as you're going along this episode, if you like what you see, or if you're interested in checking out his families, there are a lot of great residential families, casework, windows, doors, and stuff that we're going to talk about today, then head on over to revitfamily.biz and use the offer code 20, RevitKid24. All the details are linked below. And so if you want to head on over at any moment in time, or maybe wait till we're done and then go over there, feel free to go over and check out a bunch of the families that Brenton has created. And with that offer code, not only will Brenton know that you saw it here, but you'll also receive 20% off. So thanks, Brenton, for that. And thanks for sponsoring this season. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Of course.
Yeah,
before we jump into this content, because I think everyone's probably excited to see what the heck I'm talking about and what we're going to talk about, maybe give everyone a quick overview of yourself and who you are and why you came to be on the Revit Kids show talking about millwork families.
Okay. Yeah, I've been doing Revit for probably 18 years now. And one day I noticed that something we all have in common as Revit users is kind of a lack of good content. And my favorite thing about Revit is family making. That's probably like my favorite task. And so I was making me families and decided to start making families for other people. And one thing led to another, and I met you and we started working together. So that's kind of the brief history. I don't know how much else you say,
I think that's enough. I think anyone who wants to check out the episode, I'll probably link a bunch of episodes below. But Brenton's been on the show a couple times. The first few episodes we're talking about Revit family creation stuff. I think we started off pretty basic, and then there's some really cool advanced things that Brenton showed us. But today's content is going to be focused on a very specific, aspect of Revit, and especially one that, while it could relate to industrial, corporate, or commercial work, because there is this type of design work there, this is definitely something that has always been sort of a thorn on people's side when it comes to Revit for custom residential. And so maybe what we'll do is quickly show folks some examples of what we're talking about, and then we'll kind of get into how you came about this approach, and then maybe how you built some of the stuff so they can potentially do it themselves. And so with that, I guess I'll turn it over real quick. We're talking about I don't even know what would we call this? We'll call this interior trim, interior finishes.
Yeah, I call it finished carpentry.
Finished carpentry, I guess. Yeah. So, that's why I kind of went through moldings and baseboards, because it all kind of folds in. But I guess what we'll do is maybe your screen is shown right now, so maybe just show folks first what it looks like, and then maybe give them the surprise reveal about how it's built. But maybe zoom in around and show them sort of some of the cool stuff and how this looks in different views, and then we can kind of show them the secret about how it's built.
Okay. Yeah. Let me go to maybe like a Victorian style. So this is kind of what we're talking about, is like if you're an interior designer or like an architect and you're trying to do a bunch of like nice interior work and you need to lay out a bunch of wall paneling, or even if you're keeping it simple and just doing some base and some crown or some chair rail, or even like just the window or door trims. It's like the bane of our existence to do this in Revit. Like there's not real good commands to get this stuff done. And depending on what you're doing and what the end, product is, whether it's a drawing, a rendering, interior elevations, or just spinning around the 3D model for a client, you kind of have to consider different techniques to arrive at some of these like finished levels of finish on the interior. So what I'll be showing you today is how to get trim work anywhere from like this advanced to, I got some other examples like, I've got all sorts of styles, like even mid-century modern, which is like a lot more simple. Oops, I need to recenter my focal point here. To like even like a minimalist style, even minimalists, you still do. This is like a reveal in the base to create the baseboard. That's like a new thing.
Yep.
So just this kind of idea, or like modern stuff now, we don't go heavy with maybe crown or base or wall paneling, but we do like accent walls, like slatted walls and stuff. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today, is just how have people been doing this? What problems have they had? For me, I've always had issues with this, and it's not like these things that I'm going to talk about today solve all those issues. Some things are just inherent in Revit, but what I would like to talk about today is like, let's put a couple more tools in our toolbox,
right? So
that we have a couple of ways of dealing with issues or errors as they come up in Revit.
As you were talking, I kind of had an idea. Let's do this. Everyone in the chat, let us know how you create some of the examples that Brenton was showing here. And while we're waiting for you guys to do that, maybe if you just pan along, Brenton, and just show some more examples of what it is that you're creating. Give them a second to enter in the chat, and then once we have a few answers there, then you can actually reveal how it is you've made most of this stuff.
Okay. Yeah,
so maybe just pan along a few other modern examples, maybe some chair rails or some wainscoting or something. That's a cool one.
Okay. So maybe like a craftsman style, this like 2/3 kind of wainscoting. Got like a mantle, and then beams as well. You got to think about beams. People love their beams. This is kind of a modern example. And this is, if you zoom in close, you'll see this is actually like a round. A half
little
round.
fluted thing there. It's cool.
Yeah, fluted.
Nice.
Here's an example of a slatted wall. And like I showed you earlier, this is just a reveal in the drywall to create a base.
Yeah.
We talked about mid-century. What is this? I've got a lot of colonial styles. So Dutch, English. So here's kind of like.
So by the way, some of the responses in the chat right now are, we don't do it. It's too hard. That was Joe. And then Peter Welch said, we do this by hand drafting in the view afterwards.
Yeah, like this is true.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's some folks that are talking about extrusions and sweeps and wall sweeps and different ways to model in place. So I think as people start rolling, I think maybe it's time to sort of reveal some of the approaches that you've taken, with the main one being, let's maybe zoom into that.
Drum roll.
Drum roll, please.
So the main way I've been doing like very repetitive stuff is curtain walls.
Curtain walls.
That's kind of been my new favorite approach. It also comes with its own like difficulties. If you haven't used curtain walls before, they can be really confusing. So this does require like a good base knowledge of curtain walls and kind of how those go.
Yep.
But yeah, so let's get one of these complicated ones. Okay, let's do this one. It's a little more straightforward. So all of these are curtain walls. So if I got a tab selected. But basically this is a curtain wall drawn in front of like my actual walls. And what it does is it's great because it automatically puts all of the paneling in for me. And it's much easier to edit and divide things. Like if I was to do this all with I don't even know how I would do this other than a curtain wall, other than an in-place family.
Right.
And you'd have to be doing in-place families on each wall or create some insane like parametric family. And that's going to be like crazy too. Yeah. But curtain walls are like built for this type of thing, just being able to divide stuff up.
So what's interesting is when you first sent me these families as you're working on them, it reminded me of I think Dan Stein when he was on the show, and he was talking about how Lake Flato does their casework using curtain walls, and I always thought there's definitely some benefits to it, but it's always kind of eh. But then this is one of those ones that I was like, this actually makes a ton of sense. And I think we can get into, because I did also take some of the families and I attempted to use them, and I played with them a little bit within my own project just to sort of get a feel for your approach and whatnot. And so I'm curious to walk through and show people, some of the pros and cons of using a curtain wall for this, right? But I do think that as you're showing in the examples on screen and whatnot, the flexibility of it makes total sense. And anybody who's used like the wall sweep tool, for example, it works, but there's a lot of downfalls of that too, right? And so like all the other workarounds right now also have a ton of cons to go along with the pro. So to me, as I was going through it, it definitely feels like something worth trying out. You know what I mean? Like it's, and so I'm curious because I know usually you're very when it comes to your family creation and when you build something like a complex library like this, it's usually client demands as far as people are asking for it, or there's a certain amount of people that ask. So what is it that first made you start approaching interior millwork or this finish work, and then what is it that made you try out the curtain wall for some of this stuff?
Oh man, this was something that spiraled. It was as simple as on all of my commercial projects, I have to put base in for all of our interior elevations, and there was just no great way to put in base. We were doing wall sweeps, we were doing in-place families. We even did like walls that were just like 4 inches high and like a quarter.
Yep.
Like we've done everything. And so I was like, oh man, I wonder what everyone on the residential side is doing, because I've had clients before that they do crazy amount of finish work like what you're seeing here. They do that on the regular for their high-end clients.
Right.
And I've seen all sorts of things. The most common thing is like what people were writing in. They'll just draft it into the elevation, but then you don't get renderings. Right. And then it makes your model super heavy.
Right.
So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to at least create a bunch of profile families for everyone in a bunch of different styles so they can choose what they want to do. They could sweep, they could do whatever they want with the profiles. So I started making the profiles, and I'm like, nah, I could take this further. So then it just escalated. What was supposed to be like a month project has taken like 9 months. I know.
When you sent over the sample file and I saw you had like 14 different architectural styles, I was like, when did you start doing this, Brenton? Because you had Craftsman to, what was it? Or was it Greek Louis Revival? 14. Or Louis 14. I was like, what on earth are you doing? But you had profiles and everything for that. So I kind of figured it was something that you've built over a while. But I do think that the curtain wall approach, and so anyone who's followed the channel may have seen that even things as simple as like a wood slat wall or you can use raised, the some of you may have seen my raised standing seam metal panel roof, or the board and batten siding. Like, there's a lot of really good uses when you need repetitive things in 3 dimensions for curtain walls. And somebody in the chat asked right away when we said it, is it best practice? And yes, I mean, in my humble opinion, right? Anything can be best practice if it works. Like, just because Autodesk called it a curtain wall doesn't mean that you have to use it for curtain walls. Like, that's just the tool that the name that Autodesk gave it, right? And so I guess before we jump into how they work and how you created them, maybe like how has the usage of them been so far, as like the functionality for folks who have used them so far, and sort of the feedback you've gotten.
So we just released these on Cyber Monday, so I don't have a lot of user feedback yet.
Got it.
It's just been me and another guy that developed these. We've been using them, and so I created all these examples in each style, and I've really liked them. The only thing you run into is this typical curtain wall stuff. So whether it's this or any other curtain wall, you hit kind of the same barriers, but I'm surprised that they are surprisingly light.
Yeah.
For how many objects they're creating. I'm not going to say they're super light, but they're definitely better than like if you were going to model a bunch of.
I was just going to say, if you model that in place, just geometry wise, if you're still putting in the scene, then there's no way that it's lighter than than if you were to model all the sweeps in place, right?
Yeah. So I would say it is a best practice, but obviously it could be abused to the point where it's not a good practice. But
right.
Generally speaking, if you're putting this much detail in your model anyways, this is probably a better way to do it. It keeps the file running a little lighter than.
And I guess I didn't mean to completely shut you down. Who was that? Hale Hain is the username. I didn't mean to shut you down completely as far as what you mean by best practice. If by best practice you mean how to the most efficient modeling type, or making your model the most efficient, however you want to talk about it, then there's different approaches. If you mean best practices and this is how it was meant to be used, that's another thing. If you're currently drafting all your crown molding, then I think even a curtain wall is going to be better on a model than all those drafting lines, right? But best practices, even when we talk about using ceilings as floors or whatever, right? When you like, that's just you utilizing Revit components and the benefits of them for a different use than the name that they were given from the factory, right? A perfect example of that is topo solids, right? Topo solids they're just a floor, right? Autodesk just finally named them a different name and gave them a couple more features, but it's just a floor, right? And so it's okay like to use different tools for other things, but when it comes to rolling them out within a firm, obviously there's an education piece that you need for users to understand. So anyways, I didn't want to completely knock down that guy, so sorry about that. But so I understand. Yeah. So not a ton of user feedback yet. I will tell you, and maybe what you could do is maybe quickly create, to create similar, just make one of them and draw a couple curtain walls of it, just to show folks how they kind of mold into a project. And then we can kind of talk about some of the pros and cons of it. And then maybe we can dig into some of the panel and mullion families to sort of show how that works.
Okay. I'm just going to I'm going to start from scratch here. So we kind of have I'm going to call it like a bedroom. We'll call this a bedroom, that far end. We'll call this the living room. And in between, let's maybe just call it a bathroom for the sake of this. So what I'm going to do is let's start with something simple. Let's just do crown and base. I'm going to go to the example project, or like the big file here. Let's do, yeah, sure. Louis XIV. So I've got these pre-made walls, and the reason this is where it spiraled, is I was just going to give people profiles so they could make all this stuff themselves. But then I realized how complicated and annoying it is to create this. In order to create this curtain wall to do this simple thing, you've got to create a mullion. But first you have to bring in the profile, then you create the mullion, then you create the wall type. So it gets there's a lot of steps. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to copy it into our example house here. So literally all you'd have to do, I'm just gonna, my walls are 9 feet high, so I'm just gonna make this curtain wall 9 feet high. And I'm just gonna use the create similar command, and it'll put me instantly into the curtain wall, and I'm just gonna draw it here from corner to corner. Now, because of the direction I drew it, it's on the wrong side, so I'm just gonna select it and hit spacebar to flip it. And so like that quick, you got yourself like base and crown. And then if you want to add chair rail, you would just go to the curtain grid command, place a curtain grid 3 feet off the floor, and then use the mullion command. And we'll pick a chair rail mullion, and then you can add that. So it's basically that quick in theory. Now, like when I start to take it around the room and we hit an opening, that's where it starts to get a little complicated for people. So let's go ahead and I'll create this on the opening wall so that we can kind of go through that. Okay, so here we go. We got our crown put in, we got our base. I'm also going to do the chair rail just so that we can see the whole thing. Okay, I'm going to temporarily hide that door for a sec. So you can see what's happening. It's running through the door. So the best way to do that is to add a grid on either side of the door. So we're just going to add a curtain grid. Like I said, this is where, like, if you're new to Revit, this isn't going to feel intuitive. If you've been using curtain walls for a while, this shouldn't really be too big of a challenge for your mind. But okay, so once we've got those curtain grids in, when I select my chair rail, for example, now you can see it's broken up and I can just delete it. I'll do the same with the base. Oh, so here's the other thing. When there's a pre-made wall, anything that was put in by that wall that was pre-made is automatically going to be pinned. So you got to unpin it and then you can delete it. So that's a caveat. All right, I'm going to bring my door back because basically I want my base to come right up to the jamb of the door. So I'm just going to use the align tool and then align my curtain grid if I can. And there we go. There we go on both sides. So at this point, you might be asking yourself, was that easier? Was that faster than just using like 3 wall sweeps? Maybe, maybe not. Even wall sweeps, they'll cut the opening, but you're still going to have to adjust them to the casing of the door.
Yeah. And you can't put them all in at the same time on the same wall. That's always frustrating with wall sweeps, right? Once you place a wall, you have to recreate one or create, it doesn't like let you put the same sweep on the same wall. So I did exactly what you're doing with your families like last week. and so I was saying the same thing in my head. I'm like, this is easy, but is it easier? But then I was going through my head. So one thing that somebody asked in the chat, which I also was sort of walking through the process when I was playing with them, is the joining of curtain wall to adjacent walls and stuff. So like when you placed it there, right? Technically it's joined with the perpendicular wall, which means if you create one on the corner, they're not joining each other. You have to sort of pull them away. Is that kind of the workflow that you're thinking is place them all and then join them together, or have you played with anything? So what I tried was placing them and say disallow join, right? But the problem is when you disallow join, then you have to reallow join and move them away anyways. So I'm curious if you've or graphically, does it not matter in your mind the way? Because technically the sweeps don't, or the mullions don't go into the wall, right? But the wall does. But then you won't get a clean return on the profile.
Yeah, exactly. So that is one annoying thing, and I can't figure. So even if you unjoin them, so like even if let me just delete the walls behind so you can see more clearly what's going on. If I trim these walls to each other, which I think they already are. Yeah, they're already trimmed to each other. They still run through each other. For some reason, the mullions won't join on an inside corner. But on an outside corner, they will. So if you are a little annoyed in 3D that you're not seeing that join, that is this. I'm just going to say that is a downfall because even if I do the
I think if you
join,
if you pull them away and pull them back the right order, they actually do. I think I did get them.
oh,
I think I did get them to join. If you pull, if you pull that away, or like pull it to the left, yeah, and then pull the other one, yeah, unjoin. Just maybe just yeah. Let's see what happens.
yeah, no, this would be good if.
Yeah.
Oh, they did.
But it's
Okay.
so it works. But again, it's one of those things where when I was running through that, I was thinking, well, it's still not that bad if I was to just draw them and keep them like let's say a foot away from the perpendicular wall and keep them
And
all and
then
then
bring
just
them
do a
together.
trim or something. Then they do it right because the problem is when it joins with the other wall for some reason it does some weird thing where it breaks the the clean, but it does actually
Yeah.
return.
The logic. Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
good. I actually, in all my playing with them, I hadn't got it to do that. But obviously, I didn't try
It's
very hard because it didn't even occur
Yeah,
to
it's
like pull
one
them
of
and put them
those
back.
yeah, one of those curtain wall things. And then somebody did ask about joining if you join geometry between the curtain wall and I don't think this works, but I'm just asking because they asked
Yeah,
between the curtain
that
wall
I
and the wall.
have. Yeah, that I have tried and it doesn't work, but I can do it right now. Join geometry.
So the idea there would be if it did join, maybe it cuts the openings, but it's the same thing when I'm using like the if you use it for like board and batten, you still have to cut the openings.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't get it to work with join geometry.
But still, I have to say that having done this already in just a little 400 square foot area, so first I will tell you, first I had crown molding and base molding in this project using wall sweeps, right? And I deleted them and did it with this, and it really wasn't that bad. And I'm also someone who, like you said, I live in curtain walls all the time. I love curtain walls, so like the splitting and adding and messing with grids like is just second nature to me. But the amount of pushing and pulling and slicing of wall sweeps I did to get to where I needed to be, right? Replacing them, create new, pulling it back, pulling another one back, adding another one. It may have been about the same amount of effort, maybe less, because like if you do a wall, anyone who's done the wall sweeps knows they'll go through the whole path of the wall, right? So then if you need to pull it
Yeah.
back and you need to have it return, every single perpendicular hit you might need to split, and then you need to recreate it. And so there's, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, the one thing it does do is what you're showing here, which it will typically be cut at the opening, but see how it's running the length of the wall? You have to split it or recreate it room by room.
Yeah. So, for example, in this example, if this is a bedroom, a bathroom, and a living room, most likely I have tile base in my bathroom. So I don't
Right.
want it running through my bathroom. And then in the living room, maybe you have a fancier base, right? So it's annoying. It is particularly annoying, in addition to what you were saying, if there are doors, it's almost impossible now because I can pull this back to my bedroom, which is where I maybe wanted it.
Yes.
But now I've got all of this
It's part of the
that I
same thing.
don't want.
Exactly.
So what am I supposed to, you can't even pull it back. You have to
Right.
like, I've played the game where I hide it inside the casing.
Yeah, yeah. You shrink it as much as you can. Yeah, and it becomes
Yeah.
a scheduling nightmare too. So you can get there. I mean, like I said, I had this whole project completely sweeped out. But I will say that even just having to slice grids around every opening, I actually kind of enjoyed it better than dealing with sweeps, personally.
Yeah. It gives you more control and you feel like
Right.
at least like you know what's going on. And where it really shines, like it's maybe sixes between wall sweeps and this method if you're just doing base and crown.
Right.
Like maybe you do whatever you're comfortable with. But if you're doing wall paneling, that's
Yeah.
where you're really going to want to start to like use this stuff. So let's just do an example here, like maybe how I did this wall. I'm just going to delete it and we'll start from scratch. And like I use a mixture of methods because different things different work better, right? So one thing I'm going to go over real quick, just with this project, I wanted to give people the tools. It's not just curtain wall that you have the tools to use. I recognize that curtain wall isn't always good all of the time. So we kind of created like a whole library of stuff so that if curtain walls aren't working for you, we've also already created the wall sweeps for you. So you don't have to sit there and create a wall sweep. We've also created the profiles for you that are parametric. So you can stretch the height of the crown without having to like
Hmm.
constantly do all this stuff. So there still is like all of those options. We're just kind of focusing right now on the curtain wall aspect. But like even the beams, which I do with the sloped glazing, we also created a beam family because sometimes the sloped glazing isn't going to do what you want it to do. So maybe you just need like like a family to
Hmm.
host this thing. So with that in mind, something I was doing when I started was just experimenting with these different methods.
Hmm.
And like you discover certain things like, for example, I've got three of the exact same like structure,
Hmm.
but one's done with wall sweeps, one's done with curtain walls, and then one's like the sweeps are built into the
Yeah.
wall
Yeah.
type. But like you can see on a curtain wall, it's not great if you're going to do a curve. If you're
Right.
going to do a curve, I would do a wall sweep
Right.
because otherwise you break it up. But like on a wall sweep, you can't get a vault very easily because it doesn't want to go up. But with a curtain wall,
Super
you
easy.
can just edit the profile of the
Hmm.
wall and it'll put that crown up there. So
Hmm.
um, anyways, when I do these things, I'm not trying to preach just one way.
Right.
You should use probably a mix, to
Hmm.
be honest.
I think
So
I think if you're doing something this custom in these styles, I think you have to do a mix. But you'll notice not one of those did you say model in place sweep or model in place component, right? So
yeah.
that is a key as far as best practices. If you want to go back to that, I think the one best practice is to not use model in place components.
Yeah, I mean, it's always an option, but if you can avoid it, I definitely avoid it if I can.
Yeah.
But
All right,
there are
so
times
let's talk about the panels real quick, and then there's a couple of really good questions that I think we can jump into that dive a little more into the technical side of it.
okay, yeah, and then maybe we can dissect one of these
Yeah,
things.
for sure.
So let me go to a floor plan. Actually, I can do this in 3D. So I'm going to start with just a basic, instead of one of my pre-made walls, let's just build it from like the default wall, the curtain wall type, right? And I'll just show you the different parts as we build. This this is in my way. I can't see the corner. Let me hide that real quick. Okay, so here's my curtain wall. And let's just kind of, maybe we'll do like this pattern to match the wall across it. So we're going to put in some curtain grids, one for chair, and then great thing about curtain walls is they always try to snap to centers or thirds.
Hmm.
So let's break it up into thirds.
And so what's
And then
nice,
we
I think,
also,
for real quick, I think what's nice about showing it this way for people who aren't comfortable with curtain walls, I think showing it without the empty grid or the empty panel. So the reason you
yeah,
weren't seeing panels before is there's a family called an empty system panel, and so it makes it so you don't see all this. But I think by doing this, it's nice because now people can visually see those. Because I don't think is there a way to turn on grids visually? I don't even remember. I don't.
I was wondering that yesterday, but I never
I
like
never.
explored.
I don't know if there is anyway, other than having the actual lines. I don't know if there's a way to graphically see them. But this is nice because now you can sort of see the gridding piece of it.
Yeah, because it's real confusing with when it's all invisible. You
Oh
have
yeah,
no.
right.
Okay, so I'm going to let's start with the panels first. So right now the default's got this just like this gray panel. Depending on your template, you may see glass. I don't know what's in whatever's it comes in your template by default, but if you tab, you can select these, and then if you right click on them, there's an option that says select panels, and you can grab them everything on that entire wall or along the horizontal or vertical grid. So we're going to grab all of the ones on the horizontal grid. And what we're going to do is we're going to change those panels to be these rectangles, right? So I'm going to go over here, and right now it's showing me the system panel, and I'm just gonna try anything here. Let's do this rectangle. And so now it swaps out that panel for this panel that I've created. It's a curtain wall panel family that's been loaded in. And then we'll do something similar to the top. We'll just use a different panel. So I'm gonna select it, then right click, and then grab everything along that horizontal grid, which these little tips, if you're not used to curtain walls, it's good to know because you don't want to have to sit there and pick each
Hmm.
curtain wall panel individually. Been there, done that for like the first 3 years of my career before I discovered that. And it was like mind numbing. So, okay, this time we're going to put like the same thing, but with a clipped corner. Let's do round clips on the corners. Okay, so you can see it's starting to kind of look like the others, but it's not quite there. So let's put the crown in. So to add the crown and the base and the chair rail, those will just be mullions. So we're going to put the mullions across the curtain grids at the top, bottom, and middle. So I'm just going to go into the mullion command, and we'll grab a crown. Oh, I obviously grabbed the smaller crown, but that's
all right.
Yeah.
You don't like that? You don't like the look of that? You have to change it.
Yeah, it's more dramatic with the big one. So let's see, and then let's grab the base. We'll slap that on the bottom, and then we'll grab the chair. Slap that in between. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere, and you can see how this would be faster than trying, like, this is where it starts to shine. Even starting from scratch, like I have pre-built walls you could draw, and it would do a lot of this for you in one, just when you create the wall.
Yeah.
But even if you created it from scratch, it's going to be a lot faster than trying to model all this.
Yeah. I mean, it what it does is it just makes it much more custom, right? It's flexible to the point where you're just sketching on this wall with a curtain wall, right? And then you're just adding these details, which is
exactly,
I think, probably what you're looking for when it comes to this type of work anyways.
Yeah, and like you can experiment. So maybe I want like a bigger panel in the middle and like 2 smaller sides. So now I could just switch this to 3 feet off that side, 3 feet off that side. And now I have like a different look, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can also play with, because of the way we built the families, you can experiment with the, you can offset any one of these sides. So if we wanted like a 4-inch, like maybe we want bigger spacing between all of this, you can add that in. Right. So, okay, now we space that a little more. Oh, I should have.
Sorry. And I think maybe since you're doing this, I think it would be helpful for folks who again aren't living in curtain walls every day. What's cool too, as you're doing what you're showing me right now, if you go to architecture and add a curtain grid, you can add just one segment, and you can add like the base, the bottom, and you can make like 3-foot increments of the bottom, but that big square stays on the top. You know what I mean?
Let's do that. Okay, so what he's talking about is by default it wants to put a curtain grid across the whole thing. But if you just click this button, now it'll just put it. It's not going to sweep it across the whole height of the wall. We could put one like right in the center. The other thing is, I want it to, there we go. Snap.
Close enough. You get the idea.
There we go. But yeah, so you could keep doing that.
I think that's the key. I wanted to show that because I know when I'm teaching people curtain walls, that's one of the things that's conceptually hard to understand is the grids go through the whole host, but you don't have to use those grids the whole host, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, and then we can do the same thing. Like if we want this like 3, but then we could do that same thing there. Same principle. Oh, why am I not seeing it? There we go. I don't know what I was doing wrong. So let's just do 2. And then, okay, so here, now on the other side, we don't want to add another curtain wall for the other side. This actually, like he was saying, it goes through the wall the entire length. It's just not, you can see the ones that we're using are dotted right now. So we can click on that curtain grid and we can add a segment to it. And we can add the one over there, and then it breaks it up, right? Then, now because we know these are all separate panels, we can tab select this panel, tab select this panel, and we could make them round now instead of, right? So now we've got like another look. So you can slowly start to really build out a wall. And again, I've created a bunch of them. You could do raised panels. You can do, right now we're doing like the applied, like faked panels. There's flat panels. Like once you have like a library built up of all of these things, it's real quick to kind of design the
Right.
trim.
Right. So I think there's a few really good questions. I think maybe I'll ask a couple of the questions that are more project based, and then we can jump into maybe one or two of the panel families, because there were actually people who were asking to see what the panel families look like. But
Okay.
real quick, the project based questions are controlling or how it looks / controlling visibility in floor plans and like sections. So, how's it look in a section is one of the questions, but then also by having all these layers of curtain wall in your floor plan, what are some things that you can do if you take this approach?
Okay, good. Those are good questions. So let's just cut a section and answer that question real quick. I'll cut a section through here because it was actually, let's do it through like a more substantial, like this one was crazier. Let's do that through that one. Because it's all model geometry, it will show up just basically like you would expect it to show up, like real world.
Yeah.
Oops.
And of course, it's using curtain wall, mullion, and panel category and object styles type of stuff, right? So just, as far as the visibility, people are asking, it's not a wall, right? It's not a wall. So if you to some extent, it's nice because you can control it differently, but it's going to use the cut thickness of a curtain mullion, right?
You'll control it with your object styles like you would most things.
Yep.
All right, then floor plan. Okay, so it's kind of up to you how you'd want to manage that. You could, I think curtain walls are a separate category in visibility graphics. So if you don't have any other curtain walls, like a standard residential project, let me make sure I'm saying that right. Curtain walls.
The curtain walls are not, but the actual panels and mullions within it are, I believe.
Yeah,
right?
so you could basically shut it all off so that it all disappears. Again, the caveat is if you're not using curtain walls anywhere else where you want to.
Right. If you're using panels and mullions, then you can't do it that way. But you could also easily create filters for this type of stuff is kind of what I was thinking, right? Like, I know you started with default 1, but it seems like this would probably be beneficial to have a curtain wall or a wall type for specific things. It probably is a good, and so you can even just do a type-based filter for the curtain walls, or you can even do a filter for the mullions and panel families themselves too, right? And just turn off everything except for the base if you wanted for some reason, right?
Yeah. I know work sets really shouldn't be used for this, but I abuse this all the time. I personally would probably use a work set for this. I'm not condoning it, but that's what I would do.
No. No, I'd rather actually use a parameter within the family itself, the wall or something, and then use a filter than a work set. But that, that's just me. We won't go down that best practice rabbit hole.
Yeah, we can light a fire on the chat with this.
Okay, so I think you got to see what it looks like. I think there was a question earlier, and I'm not sure how far you've dug into this, but I believe sometimes the profile of mullions looks different in sections if it's like skewed or something. It like shows the profile, not like the actual skewed cut. I don't know if you've played with that at all. Like if you were to cut that angled wall perpendicular, horizontally, not perpendicular to the wall, does it look different, or does it look like it's perpendicular?
I'm guessing it's gonna be like distorted because I think it's actually cutting the geometry. So I'll measure. Like I know. I know this should be, just the fact that it's not snapping to edges lets me know that it's probably, yeah, like that should be 3/4 of an inch. So it's definitely, like real life. If you saw it the wall,
And the other thing I thought about too, as you were saying, is I know in 24 update and then 25, I think they added some features to the profiles for curtain walls, I believe. I think you can add detail. Was it detail? I forgot what they added, but I think it would, for this approach, I believe it seems like it was added to add mullion, like super detailed mullions that were able to like close the profiles or double close profiles or something. So I wonder, taking this, I didn't dig into it far enough, but when you showed me this, I was thinking, I wonder if that would open up even more doors when you take this approach.
I wouldn't know anything about that. I still
Yeah.
have to design clear back in 2019 so that everyone can use these things.
So one other question before we jump into the actual families is people were asking about adding like electrical, light fixtures, duplexes, or receptacles and stuff. Are they hosting to? Are they going to try and host the curtain wall or no? I don't even know if they would host the
I
curtain wall. Will they?
I've never tried that. I don't have my stuff loaded into this project, or I'd try it real quick. My guess, I mean, if you want to wait, I can look.
I'll quickly check the chat, and
Okay.
you can look for it. You can load in a an outlet or something. Yes, some people are saying that they use filters to hide it. Let's see. If we could see it in section, we did that. Another question about power. Yeah, I mean, my guess would be even if it doesn't, you could always hide it, or use whatever filter you have to hide all this stuff, and then place electrical and then adjust them afterwards. But
Yeah, it doesn't want to host. It'll host to the actual wall, but it
yeah, I
won't
don't
host
think that's what I'm
to-
saying. So I think because you're using empty panels and there's no geometry there, I don't think it hosts to them, right?
Yeah, I can even try it on one with geometry. Yeah, I
No.
don't think it likes. I
Unless
don't think it
unless
can
that's a
curtain.
wall category, those panels, because you can put walls in the panels. Unless it's a wall
Oh,
category, then it's not gonna snap, right? Because
that's
if they're wall based.
yeah, that's true.
If they're surface, or I guess if they're face based, they might, right?
Yeah, and they're not face. My
Right.
stuff is
You're not. Your
face-based.
stuff is not. Yeah, yeah. So if you have face based stuff, then obviously it's gonna snap to anything that has a face. But to be fair, if you look at like your applied base right there, if it was face based, it would go to the wall because it's empty in between it, right? Like those empty squares. So I don't know. I hope that shows you guys what you're asking for. So then I guess real quick, let's jump into maybe one or two of these panel families and give
Okay.
everyone an idea of how you created some of these within the curtain, because I know from experience that the curtain panel family editor environment isn't the most fun place in the world, but
Yeah, and these are kind of complicated because I put the raised panel, the flat panel, and like the applied panel are all in one family.
oh, with visibility and stuff.
Yeah, so this is gonna look wild.
What made you take that approach?
I think we were trying to be
Trying to reduce the
efficient.
number of panels by having
Yeah,
types instead of families. Yeah.
yeah. Honestly, it could go either way. These are like the little decisions I'm constantly making. Like, is this the right
Yeah,
decision?
right. Next year you might have a completely different opinion on it.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna turn on the preview visibility, and then we can select. We could select like, okay, right now it's raised, or we could switch to the elliptical, for example. But it's not really too complicated, other than you just have to get used to the fact that curtain wall items, whether it's a door or a curtain wall panel, you don't get to fix the height or the width of it.
Right.
It's always going to be an instance parameter. And if you need the information, like the width information for something else in the family, you've got to create a reporting parameter, if any of this makes sense. So that's probably the most complicated part of building this type of thing.
So in this case, what we're looking at right now, your width and your height parameter, are those the reporting parameters?
Yes. So they're just
Those aren't the out of the box, or those are the out of the box. I don't remember if it has those.
I don't think, no, I don't
No,
think they
okay.
are in the box yet.
Got it. So
I
yeah,
remember
so
having to-
yeah, so that's what the complication with curtain panel families is yeah, it's fixed to that square, but it also gets wild because curtain panels can be like this, right? And so yeah. So how did you just trial and error some of the stuff till it worked, or how did you sort of manage the testing of some of these families within certain geometries and whatnot?
Yeah, so I'm gonna have to be a little honest here. This is the part that Kellen, the guy I work with, he did all of these.
Okay.
So I don't know
We'll
how
have to
much
ask
testing
him.
he did. Yeah. But yeah, we we tested these a lot.
So everyone here, so the goal here is that everyone needs to go get these libraries and then break them and then tell you all the different ways that we broke them, right? That's the plan?
Yeah, don't worry. That'll happen.
No, that's the plan. I'm cool with that.
That's what happens.
Awesome. So maybe
I always get nervous.
So that this shows a little bit of the panel. Maybe quickly show one of the profile families, one of like the big crowns or something like that. The Louis or the King. What did you have? The King.
Louis V.
Louis the 14th, whatever it was.
Yeah. I have to. It took me a while to memorize that because I'm like, I can't read this Roman numeral. Okay, you said like a crown.
Yeah, just something, just so everyone gets an idea. So the panel family is that it's basically a rectangle that's got an instance for a width and a height, and you're kind of flexing geometry within it, and that can be a little challenging for people to sort of get that concept because you're used to the rigidity of the normal family environment. And then mullions are just profile families, right? It's you create a profile and then you load it in and then it sweeps it, right? It extrudes it. But making them fully parametric with crown molding takes a lot more effort, which is why I'm also curious to see.
Yeah, so I cracked open probably the most complicated one. And so we really thought it was important for you guys to be able to, we don't let you control every little bit of the profile, just generally the height and on the base, we'll let you do the depth and the height. For the crown, I think we stuck to just height being parametric because basically all of these profiles, if I let you control every little bit, there's going to be so many parameters, and you're not going to know what one does what anyways.
And they're going to break.
And you're destroying the style anyways by changing the proportions. So we just kind of stuck with let them change the height. And then what we did is every single thing has to be constrained. In order for us to just let you do the height,
right,
it requires that we control every single intersection and every line in here. So we had to go in and create all these parameters. And then what you do is you create formulas using ratios to the original height. So basically what we're doing is scaling the whole thing based on your one parameter height.
You're essentially scaling the profile based on height. But I'm assuming you've built in, or have you yet built in, if there's a certain thing, it won't let it go to that to break? Or that's not there yet?
Yeah, so some fail safe.
A fail safe if someone types in a half inch for the depth and a half inch for the height, where it's an obvious one where you're not going to be able to fit all this geometry in it, it'll go to the minimum.
So for some things, we did that. But the great thing about doing a ratio is there is no value that you can put in other than 0 that's going to break it because except for Revit can't draw things that are too small. But generally speaking, because it's a ratio equation, it will literally just proportionally shrink and make everything bigger. So you're not going to run into But yes, we have put in fail safes where we thought they were necessary.
Awesome. So let's see. I think the final question then is, will this be available for us? Final question in the chat. Is this available for us?
Of course. You can go to my website. We just launched it.
It's available right now, guys. Yes. So I wanted to make sure that first I got to play with this a little bit. Brenton and I chatted about it quite a bit, and then I also wanted to make sure that it was available. We talked about maybe having you come on the show before it was available, but I thought it'd make more sense to have you come on, so it is. So yeah, if you guys, I'll jump over to this thing. If you head over to revitfamily.biz, you can get that whole library for 20% off with 20, Revit Kid 24. There's a link as well below in the thing. So yes, all of this is available, so you guys can play with it.
And I literally, the last thing I did before logging on to this YouTube live was upload all the instructional videos. So because curtain walls are complicated, I spent the last week recording tutorials on how to use them. And so those are also on my YouTube channel so that you can, if this was confusing for you, you do have some support there. I can't probably support all of you in teaching you to use curtain walls, but I at least put videos there.
That's awesome.
It should help you use them.
Yes, no, that's great. I think fantastic questions, awesome in the chat. So everyone go over there, buy this package, and break it, and then email Brenton and tell him all the cool things that you did to break it, and then we can go fix it and make it better, right? That's the whole point of this, right? You need more people to break it.
I know you're joking, but you don't know how bad that spikes my anxiety. Because my biggest thing is user like errors that they find, because I feel so bad. And sometimes they were kind of obvious. And I'm like, oh, I'm so stupid. But that's
part of this, right? Yes. And I know I've known you for many years now, and I know that all of your family, your cabinets, your windows, they've all been updated over versions based on that feedback. So this is version 1, right? So let's everyone jump in and have some fun with this. I've like I said, I've already started using it, and I can think of some things probably that we can chat about too. But thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate it. I'm surprised my voice lasted this long. I've been sick all week, guys, so that's kind of why we did the Thursday night again this week. If you're here live, thank you for joining us. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you are watching this in the future, still subscribe to the channel. But thanks for Brenton for coming on, sharing this awesome content with us, sponsoring this season as well, and offering you guys 20% off and making these cool families. Thanks, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I always like coming on.
Awesome. And you guys, again, thanks for joining me. There'll be one more episode, I believe, next week before we take a little break for the holidays and the New Year and stuff. So be sure to check in. I plan on jumping back into the North Wing, and I believe I will be talking a little bit about the general contracting side of being a design builder. And so I think you guys will be interested in some of that stuff. So join me next week. Again, you have to subscribe to the channel, set your reminders so you know when it is. And with that, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks, Brenton, again. And everyone have an awesome weekend.